I remember my first meeting was in Dallas, Texas. And I was, I think, the only medical student at that meeting at that time. And I was like in this conference and I was completely blown away by the information. I was like, why am I not learning this in medical school? I walked out after the 3-day course and I was so inspired by it. I felt like a light had gone off in my brain and I said, this is what I need to do.
In the spring of 1988 in New Orleans, and I remember that really well. I was probably the youngest person there by far, having, just done 7-8 years of medical school and residency. And it was like the clouds parted and I was like finally learning the kind of things that I wanted to learn about.
It was either in the very late 90s or the early 2000s. And I was originally going to the conferences because I was doing some work for a supplement company. So I was in the exhibit hall and I would sneak into the lectures, of course, because I was hungry for this information.
I spent 6 or 7 years before I found ACAM kind of wandering, doing emergency medicine, trying to sort out what I was supposed to do with life and in medicine. And ACAM really helped me rediscover medicine and gave me a hope for a more definitive treatment and finding root causes of illness.
I joined around 8 years or so ago and noticed right away that the collegiality was similar to what I was accustomed to.
Around 1998, 1999, and it was already pretty rich in history by that point. And I was working for Dr. Atkins at the time, and he was the one who introduced me and said, you're gonna go to this meeting. And it was eye-opening for me. It was incredible.
Founded in 1972, the American Academy of Medical Preventics was formed to study, educate, and promote EDTA chelation therapy for cardiovascular disease. A foundation of firsts, a history rooted in brave souls and brilliant minds, leaders ahead of their time.
The L is a legacy. That makes us different. Legacy is fundamentally important.
We throw around the term pioneer now. People want to know true pioneers. These were the people that started ACAM, 50 years ago. These are the people that literally paid with their blood, sweat, and tears.
Dr. Gary Gordon, a pioneer, if ever there was one. Dr. James Frackleton, Dr. Elmer Cranton. These were the pioneering and extremely courageous doctors who, in the 60s and 70s and 80s, were utilizing what they knew worked by using something that they knew was not conventional medicine, but they understood the effects of that medicine to literally change their patients' lives.
We took risks, and sometimes we got in trouble with the medical boards. One of my mentors once said to me, if you don't get in trouble with the medical board, then you're not being a good integrative doctor.
In 1985, the group changed its name to the American College of Advancement in Medicine, with an emphasis on broadening its scope. The organization presented workshops and conferences twice a year, often changing the way attendees viewed, studied, and practiced medicine.
E is clearly education. The quality of the educational sessions are very, very high.
ACAM taught us to look at things with a different lens. It taught us to look at for root causes of disease, and then using a more holistic approach and trying to use a more natural approach than just a pharmaceutical approach alone. We have to look at the whole body, whole person, and try to figure out, it's like a puzzle. And what do we need to do to put that puzzle together?
I call ACAM the grad school of functional medicine. So, you want to learn your basics from wherever you want to learn your basics from, and then come to ACAM for grad school. This is not taught in schools. This is not taught in your grand rounds. And this is really where I learned it all.
Probably the most important skill I learned at ACAM was how to think for myself. I learned how to evaluate the literature and how to keep an open mind when I was seeking answers. The organization really inspires you to do that.
Some of the information that was presented at ACAM wasn't necessarily alternative or functional. It was just cutting edge, pioneering information in cardiology. or other disciplines where there were researchers who were really doing very important work that wasn't yet incorporated into clinical practice.
Altruism gets to the A.
The curriculum really is not being funded by companies that are telling us what to say and what to do. It's real science, it's real clinical, and it's much less biased.
I think that the lesson is you get much farther in medical life if you choose an organization that is giving and is not primarily trying to monetize their relationship with you. That's its strength and relatively its weakness too.
We're both dealing with chronic infection, and we're dealing with consistent, ongoing exposure to environmental toxicants. And so very few of us learned how to do that in medical school. So the necessity for having member-based, member-driven organizations and education that can guide us into figuring out how to really help complex chronic illness is crucial.
You have to be dedicated.
We literally are standing on the shoulders of physicians who dedicated and sacrificed unbelievable amount of sacrifice.
Our world of integrative medicine is changing very rapidly, and we have to keep up. When stem cell therapy came out, we taught stem cell therapy. We started using peptide therapy, so we started teaching peptide therapy. And when advanced ozone therapy came, even the ozone organizations didn't train in it. So ACAM actually was the first trainer in the EBOO, the EBOO technology. Now, what's the next E? Energy and engagement. And that's to have the older folks invite the younger generation in and say, listen, we can teach you more than the other organizations can.
I think ACAM has made me a more compassionate physician and also a physician that's filled with hope. It's easy to get discouraged in medicine. You work long hours, and prior to ACAM, I saw a lot of people not get well. I can look back through my practice and see patients that would have never gotten well if I had not come to ACAM. It absolutely is worth the investment that I made to come to those conferences, to be inspired by other physicians, both the people I met and the lecturers, and to be involved in the organization all those years.
So the resilience of the leadership and the dedication of the educational committee that does put in the time deserve an R called resilience.
We have been an important organization that has made a difference in the way medicine is practiced. We have forged new territories in integrative medicine over the years.
Probably the overdriving principle is to first do no harm, and secondly, be prepared to defend what you're doing, and remember that not everyone agrees on the best solution.
The quartet of lawyers who would guide us and advise us in practicing this way and really making sure that we were protected. I don't think many meetings have that.
If I could maybe distill it to one thing, I would say don't be afraid to follow the truth if you can find it.
A history of visionary leaders, thinking beyond what is laid out in front of them, facing decades of challenges, criticism, and even persecution to offer options and treatments that often take years to make it into mainstream medicine.
We were ahead of our time. We amazing, intelligent, smart, brave doctors, who were willing to do what they felt was right, even when, medical boards said, you're not allowed to do that. But we did what we thought was right for the patient.
The most important thing we could do is educate ourselves and therefore educate our patients.
We have to evolve, and we are. We have shown the capability of evolving. We're not standing still, but we're not trying to sell you anything other than knowledge.
Knowledge, as we call for the next generation of bold, courageous leaders to take it forward and make a difference.